Hello and welcome back to another episode of Generation Films. My name is American Ben. Avengers Endgame is coming out in... I can't do math, but very soon, I think next week. And we want to get you as prepared as possible for the film. So with that said, today we are going to go through the entire Avengers story so far, all 21 films in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and go over the major plot points you need to know going into Endgame. As always, if you enjoyed the video and appreciate what we do here or just feel bad for us, please hit that subscribe button and notification bell. Now anyways, let's get started on this.
We are not your enemy's banner. Try to think.
But first I gotta shout out today's sponsor, Shirt Change. Thank you to today's sponsor, Raid Shadow Legends. This RPG is awesome, and the game is totally free. It easily rivals some of the biggest PC and console titles. It has an amazing storyline, epic boss fights, PvP battles, and hundreds of champions to collect and customize. Just look at these awesome 3D graphics. This is a phone game. Look how crazy the level of detail is on these champions. Listen, Raid is getting big real fast, so getting in early will give you a huge head start. Plus, there's also a special launch tournament coming up with some crazy prizes. I'm even starting up a clan under the name American Ben, so don't forget to hit me up in-game, where I'm kind of a big deal. Anyway, check out the description box of this video ASAP, and download Raid only through my link to get 50,000 silver immediately and a free epic champion. Anyway, the Avengers story starts in 1942, when Nazi officer, and to be honest, not great guy, Johann Schmidt / Red Skull and his men steal a mysterious object called the Tesseract from a town in Norway, hoping to use its power for nefarious purposes. Back in New York City, the insufferable and meek Steve Rogers, who desperately wants to join the American war effort, is recruited for a special program called Project Rebirth, where he's given a super soldier serum and turns into a superhuman. And British agent Peggy Carter just can't help herself. Rogers is eventually outfitted with a vibranium shield by one Howard Stark and leads an attack on Hydra bases across Europe, but loses his friend Bucky to a train fall along the way. After Red Skull gets sucked into a wormhole and the Tesseract is lost in the ocean, Rogers has a mildly sad conversation with Peggy, his main squeeze, and then he kamikazes Red Skull's plane into the Arctic and is frozen alive. Then we fast forward to 1987, when Janet Van Dyne shrinks to subatomic levels during a mission to stop a Soviet nuclear strike and is lost to the quantum realm. Then in 1988, young Peter Quill, who recently lost his mother, is abducted from Earth by a group of space pirates led by Yondu Udanta called the Ravagers. Basically every kid's dream. Hank Pym resigns from S.H.I.E.L.D., having discovered their desire to replicate his shrinking technology, and he vows to keep it hidden. In 1991, the very not dead, now brainwashed super soldier James Bucky Barnes is sent with a bad haircut by Hydra to intercept a car carrying a case of super soldier serum. He does so and kills the couple inside, Howard and Maria Stark. In 1992, Wakanda's King T'Chaka visits his brother N'Jobu, who is working undercover in Oakland, California, and confronts him for helping black market arms dealer Ulysses Klaue obtain Wakandan vibranium. T'Chaka kills N'Jobu when he attacks Zuri, another undercover Wakandan. In 1995, on the Kree homeworld Hala, Starforce member Vers is being trained to use her special abilities by her mentor Yon-Rogg, who mansplains to her that she should keep her emotions in check. Vers is eventually kidnapped during the Iraq invasion of the alien shape-shifting group the Skrulls. The Skrulls and Vers end up on Earth, where Vers meets Nick Fury and discovers that she used to be an Earthling named Carol Danvers, a pilot in the Air Force working with Dr. Wendy Lawson. Additionally, despite being green, the Kree are actually good guys, and Starforce's members are the bad guys who killed Dr. Lawson in trying to obtain the Tesseract. Danvers actually absorbed the Tesseract's powers in an explosion, and that's why Yon-Rogg took her in. Eventually, everyone conveniently ends up on Dr. Lawson's cloaked ship in space, where a battle ensues and Captain Marvel and the Kree come out on top. Also, an alien dog takes out Nick Fury's left eye, and Danvers leaves to help the Skrulls find a new homeworld. Things then pick up in the year 2010 with Mr. Tony Stark, a rich genius playboy who inherited his father's company Stark Industries, a mega corporation dealing in the selling of military weapons around the world. Tony goes to Afghanistan to demonstrate a new missile to the American military, and while there he is kidnapped by a terrorist group. While in captivity, he builds the first Iron Man suit and the arc reactor that powers it and keeps him alive. He uses the suit to escape, goes back home, and with a newfound morality, refocuses his company away from weapons manufacturing. Meanwhile, Tony's father's old partner, Obadiah Stane, is secretly trafficking arms to criminal groups around the world, and seeing Tony's new Iron Man suit, he builds his own arc reactor and powered suit, which he uses to attack Tony, but Tony and his assistant Pepper Potts are able to defeat him. When all is back to normal, Nick Fury visits Tony and mentions something called the Avengers Initiative. Tony then reveals his Iron Man identity to the world and his celebrity reaches new heights. This inspires Ivan Vanko to build his own arc reactor and the Whiplash Mark I armor to attack Tony, who defeats him. When Tony gets drunk, his Air Force buddy Colonel James Rhodes takes/steals a prototype armor to restrain him and then confiscates it for the Air Force. Thus, War Machine is born. Around the same time, Stark's new assistant, hired when Potts was appointed CEO of Stark Industries, is revealed by Nick Fury to be Natasha Romanoff, aka the Black Widow. Justin Hammer introduces the world to his Hammer drones led by War Machine and has them attack Tony, who knocks some sense into Rhodes, and together they defeat the drones and Vanko, who wears upgraded Whiplash Mark II armor. Around this time, a large hammer is found at the bottom of a crater in New Mexico. During the same time period, Dr. Bruce Banner is on the run from the US military, specifically General Thunderbolt Ross, who wants to weaponize Banner's ability to turn into a giant green Hulk whenever he's angry, the effects of a mishap while experimenting with gamma radiation a few years earlier. When Banner is captured, British Royal Marine Emil Blonsky is then injected with Banner's blood and turns into a beast even more massive than the Hulk, called the Abomination. Blonsky rampages through Harlem, and so Ross releases Banner so he can stop him, which he does, and Blonsky is apprehended by Ross and his team. Banner escapes away to the savage lands of Western Canada, where he learns to control his transformations. Meanwhile, Tony Stark approaches General Ross and tells him about a team he is putting together. Also around this time, Odin's son and perennial dreamboat Thor is preparing to take over the throne of Asgard when the frost giants of Jotunheim come to retrieve the casket of ancient winters, which they had lost hundreds of years ago in a war against the Asgardians. Thor goes and starts a fight, which pisses off Odin enough to strip Thor of his powers and banish him to Earth. Back on Asgard, Odin goes to sleep because he's old, and Loki, Thor's brother, soon after discovering he is actually the biological son of the king of the Frost Giants, goes all Maury Povich-guest and takes over the throne on Asgard, and so Thor returns. Thor destroys the Bifrost Bridge to stop Loki from destroying Jotunheim. Odin awakens, and Loki apparently commits suicide. Back on Earth, Dr. Selvig is taken to a shield facility and asked to study the Tesseract, as a very alive and invisible Loki compels Selvig to agree to do so. Sometime around now, Captain America wakes up in New York City in 2011 in a world where he can no longer politely sexually harass women, and he meets Nick Fury. Loki meets the Other, the leader of an extraterrestrial race known as the Chitauri. He promises the Other the Tesseract in exchange for an army that will allow him to conquer Earth. S.H.I.E.L.D. accidentally activates the Tesseract, which opens a wormhole bringing Loki to Earth, who then takes the Tesseract and puts it in his scepter. Nick Fury activates the Avengers Initiative, and this marks the first time the Avengers are assembled, now including Hawkeye. Loki ends up opening a wormhole over Stark Tower and allowing a Chitauri fleet to invade. The Battle of New York takes place between the Avengers, Loki, and the Chitauri, and the World Security Council launches a nuke at New York to stop the invasion, which Tony Stark intercepts, carries through the wormhole, and propels at the Chitauri mothership, which it obliterates. Thor brings Loki and the Tesseract back to Asgard. Following the Battle of New York, Adrian Toomes' salvage company is contracted to clean up the city, but they lose the job when the project is taken over by the Department of Damage Control, the DODC, a partnership between Tony Stark and the US government. This angers Toomes, who decides to have his employees keep the Chitauri tech that they have scavenged and use it to create and sell advanced weapons. 7 months later, Tony Stark is in the middle of a PTSD bout, which has driven him to build dozens of new Iron Man suits out of a fear of aliens. Which, if aliens are good for one thing, it's inspiring humans to build awesome weapons to destroy them. But back to the story. So some unknown Mandarin dude is responsible for a string of recent bombings. Turns out Gandhi is being framed for the bombings, which were really triggered by soldiers suffering maleffects of extremis, a regenerative treatment that allows for recovery from crippling injuries. The real Mandarin is actually disabled scientist Aldrich Killian, who kidnaps Pepper and exposes her to extremis in order to force Tony to fix its flaws. Iron Man and War Machine, now Iron Patriot, team up to save the President of the United States from Killian. Iron Man and his horde of suits can't kill Killian, so a superpowered Pepper has to step in and do the job. Stark then destroys all of the Iron Man suits at Pepper's urging, and Stark cures Pepper of her superpowers? He then has surgery to remove the shrapnel in his chest and throws his arc reactor into the sea. Around the same time, back on Asgard, the Asgardians learn that the convergence and alignment of the 9 realms that leads to portals linking the worlds appearing at random is imminent. The Dark Elf Malekith merges with the Aether, an ancient weapon that the Asgardians thought they had secured from the forces of Malekith long ago. Malekith plans to unleash it at the center of the convergence in Greenwich, London, and in trying to stop him, Loki apparently dies again. He doesn't die. He never dies. Figure it out, people. An epic battle ensues between Thor and Malekith across multiple worlds, but Malekith is eventually transported to Svartalfheim, the Dark Elf homeworld, and is crushed by his own ship. Thor returns to Asgard and visits Odin, who transforms into Loki once Thor leaves. Surprise. The Asgardians entrust the Collector with the Ether, really the Reality Stone, to keep it separate from the other stone in the Tesseract on Asgard. A year or so after this, we find Steve Rogers working in Washington, D.C. for S.H.I.E.L.D. and still adjusting to modern gender roles. On a counter-terrorism mission with Brock Rumlow to free hostages from a stolen ship, Cap discovers S.H.I.E.L.D.'s plans for Project Insight, a questionable initiative to use helicarriers to preemptively eliminate threats. The Winter Soldier attacks Nick Fury, and Cap and Black Widow soon discover that since its inception, S.H.I.E.L.D. has been infiltrated by Hydra. The duo then add U.S. Air Force pararescue man Sam Wilson, aka Falcon, to their team and attempt to stop Hydra. The Winter Soldier attacks again, and Rogers recognizes him to be his old friend Bucky, who didn't actually die after falling off the train, but was captured and experimented on by Hydra and made way cooler. Amidst the conflict, a helicarrier Cap and Bucky are on collides with the Triskelion, and Rogers is thrown into the Potomac River, but Bucky saves him and disappears. Falcon and Cap head out in search of Bucky. Meanwhile, somewhere deep in space, Peter Quill, aka Star-Lord, steals a mysterious orb on the planet Morag. Quill escapes, but Yondu Udonta, his father figure, issues a bounty for his capture, while Ronan the Accuser, a Kree fanatic, has Zehoburi assassin Gamora pursue the orb. A series of events on the planet Xandar, however, ends with Quill, Gamora, two bounty hunters named Groot and Rocket Raccoon, and a prisoner named Drax teaming up. They head to nowhere in order to sell the orb to the Collector, who in turn reveals that the orb houses the Power Stone. Ronan and Gamora's adopted sister Nebula attack the group and capture the orb. Ronan places the stone in his Warhammer and turns on Thanos. Quill and Yondu's Ravagers team up with the Nova Corps on Xandar to face Ronan and his ship, the Dark Aster, which is damaged and crashes into the planet, forcing Groot to sacrifice himself to shield the others. The group then uses the Infinity Stone to defeat Ronan. Quill, who learns he's only half human, gives the stone to the Nova Corps. A few months later, the Guardians of the Galaxy, Baby Groot the newest addition, are major galactic superstars. They end up meeting Star-Lord's father Ego, who invites them to his home planet. Ego tells Peter of why he abandoned him and teaches him how to use celestial power. As it turns out, Ego is evil and wants to turn thousands of worlds into extensions of himself, but he needs Peter's powers to do so. Peter refuses, especially after finding out that Ego planted the tumor in his mother's head, and a massive battle ensues on the planet. The Guardians plant a bomb on the planet's brain and blow it up, destroying Ego. Peter is left behind as his friends escape, but Yondu Udonta shows up to help out and sacrifices his life to get Peter off the planet. Back on Earth in Sokovia, the Avengers battle Hydra leader Baron Wolfgang von Strucker, who has been conducting tests on humans using the Scepter. There, they encounter two of his test subjects, Pietro Maximoff / Quicksilver and Wanda Maximoff, aka Scarlet Witch. They apprehend Strucker and the Scepter. Stark uses the AI in the Scepter, aka the Mind Stone, to complete his Ultron global defense program. Ultron becomes sentient and decides to eradicate humanity in order to save the Earth. Ultron kills Strucker, creates an army of drones, and convinces the Maximoff twins to join his cause. They pay a visit to arms dealer Ulysses Claw to get vibranium, and Ultron rips off Ulysses' arm when he gets angry, also making him cooler. Just as a general rule in the larger Marvel universe, if you lose your arm, you become way cooler. Tony Stark uploads Jarvis into a synthetic body combined with the Mind Stone and creates Vision. The Maximoffs turn on Ultron when they learn of his plans to eliminate humanity, and they and the Avengers battle Ultron in Sokovia. They eliminate all of Ultron's bodies, and Vision finishes off the last remaining Ultron. Later, Thanos is shown donning a gauntlet. Sometime after that, Darren Cross, having forced Hank Pym out of Pym Technologies with the help of Pym's own daughter Hope Van Dyne, is close to creating his own shrinking suit called the Yellow Jacket. Meanwhile, congenial thief Scott Lang is released from prison, and Hank Pym turns him into the new Ant-Man so he can steal the Yellow Jacket from Cross. Hope and Pym train Lang as Ant-Man, and it's revealed that Hope harbors anger towards her father for her mother Janet's death. Cross finally perfects his Yellow Jacket suit and plans to sell it to Hydra. Ant-Man and Hope battle him and his agents, and finally Lang shrinks to subatomic level to compromise the Yellow Jacket suit to shrink uncontrollably, thereby killing Cross. Unlike Janet Van Dyne, Lang is able to escape the quantum realm though, and this makes Hank wonder if his wife is still savable. Hank then shows Hope a new Wasp prototype suit. 1 year after Ultron's defeat, the UN proposes the Sokovia Accords, an initiative that would allow them to control the Avengers. US Secretary of State Thaddeus Ross attempts to compel the Avengers to endorse it, and while Captain America refuses, Tony Stark, feeling guilty for his role in creating Ultron, is supportive. In Vienna, a UN conference is held to ratify the Sokovia Accords, but a bomb goes off, killing T'Chaka, the king of Wakanda. Security footage implicates Bucky Barnes, and so Steve Rogers, Sam Wilson, and T'Chaka's son T'Challa pursue him. All four of them, including Barnes, are apprehended. Angry Sokovian Helmut Zemo, the true bomber, impersonates a psychiatrist and gets access to Barnes in order to get the location of the Siberian Hydra base where other Winter Soldiers are being held in cryogenic stasis. After a huge Avengers Civil War in Leipzig Airport, Rogers and Bucky eventually escape and head to the Siberian Hydra facility. The other Avengers who went rogue are captured and thrown into a superhero prison. Stark has a change of heart and goes to Siberia to help Bucky and Rogers. There, the trio find that the super soldiers have been killed by Zemo, and Zemo shows Tony that Bucky killed his parents, leading to a huge fight between Iron Man, Cap, and Bucky, which Iron Man loses. Captain America leaves his shield behind at Tony's demand, and Zemo is taken into custody by the authorities. Soon after, Stark provides Rhodes with exoskeletal leg braces in order to allow him to walk. Rogers breaks the incarcerated Avengers out of prison, and Bucky chooses to enter cryogenic sleep in Wakanda until his brainwashing can be cured. After the superhero Civil War, Peter Parker returns to school, with Tony Stark not yet ready to allow him to become an Avenger. Spidey continues to fight crime though and runs into Adrian Toombs's, aka the Vulture's, goons. Peter ends up following the bad guys to the DC, Maryland area under the cover of a school decathlon competition. There he saves his friends from trouble. When Spider-Man returns to New York City, he tracks down Toombs, but Toombs escapes, and a bunch of civilians almost die in the process, leading Tony Stark to show up to help and confiscate Spider-Man's suit. Peter returns to school but learns that his homecoming dance date / crush, Liz's father, is actually Adrian Toombs. Peter dons his homemade Spidey suit and battles Vulture. Peter defeats him but saves his life, leaving him for the authorities to deal with. Tony Stark then offers Peter a position with the Avengers and new Iron Spider armor, but Peter declines and returns home, where his Aunt May discovers that he's Spider-Man. Meanwhile, Stephen Strange, a wealthy neurosurgeon, severely damages his hands in a car accident, and in order to heal himself, he has to go to Kamar Taj, a land somewhere in the Himalayas where they do cool magical Asian stuff. There he is taken in by Mordo, a master of the mystic arts, under the Ancient One. Strange's photographic memory allows him to learn rapidly from the ancient books in the library guarded by Master Wong. Strange learns that the Earth is protected by a shield generated from 3 sanctums located in New York City, London, and Hong Kong. He also learns to bend time with a magical relic called the Eye of Agamotto. Meanwhile, former student turned bad guy Caecilius contacts Dormammu, the primordial supernatural ruler of the Dark Dimension where time is non-existent. Caecilius and his men destroy the London Sanctum, then attack the New York Sanctum and kill the Ancient One. During this fight, Doctor Strange is aided by the Cloak of Levitation that seems to choose him as its master. At the Hong Kong Sanctum, Strange enters the Dark Dimension and traps himself and Dormammu in a time loop, which frustrates the latter into leaving Earth and taking Caecilius with him. Mordo, angry with both the Ancient One and Doctor Strange for breaking nature's laws, becomes disillusioned and turns bad. At the same time that all this Spider-Man and Doctor Strange hoopla is going on, T'Challa returns to Wakanda following the Civil War and assumes the throne. Meanwhile, Ulysses Klaue and his associate Eric Stevens steal a Wakandan artifact from a museum in London. As it turns out, when the former King T'Chaka killed his brother N'Jobu in Oakland, he had left behind N'Jobu's American son, who grew up to be Eric Stevens, a US Black Ops soldier known as Killmonger. Killmonger kills Klaue and takes his body to Wakanda, where he challenges for the throne. He wins the first time with a 10 out of 10 kill, but amidst a civil war taking place between Wakandan factions loyal to Killmonger and T'Challa respectively, T'Challa returns and defeats Killmonger. T'Challa goes to the UN and reveals to the world that Wakanda is actually an advanced civilization. A full 2 years after the Battle of Sokovia, Thor and Loki find Odin in Norway, and Odin tells them he is dying and that Ragnarok, a prophecy predicting the destruction of Asgard, is imminent. Additionally, his death will allow his firstborn, the malevolent Hela, to escape from her imprisonment. Odin dies and Hela appears, destroying Thor's hammer and leaving the two stranded in space. She then heads to Asgard, where she raises her army of the dead and plots to expand the Asgardian Empire using the Bifrost Bridge. Nice lady. Thor and Loki end up on Sakaar, a garbage planet. After Thor is forced into a gladiatorial contest with the Hulk, Thor, Loki, Hulk, and a slave trader known as 142, who's really a Valkyrie, an elite Asgardian warrior, team up to liberate the rest of the gladiators, and they escape using a wormhole to Asgard, where Hela is wiping out the remaining Asgardians. Thor, Hulk, and 142 join the fight, and the gladiators from Sakaar arrive with Loki to help, and the Statesman, the Grandmaster's ship. Thor loses his right eye to Hela and has a vision in which Odin tells him Ragnarok must happen to stop her. Thor sends Loki to resurrect the fire demon Surtur, who destroys Asgard, killing Hela. Using the Grandmaster spaceship, Thor, now the king of Asgard, attempts to bring the surviving Asgardians to Earth, but they are intercepted by an even bigger ship called Sanctuary 2. Sometime after Thor defeats Hela, back on Earth, Scott Lang, Hank Pym, and his daughter Hope plot to try and rescue Janet Van Dyne, Hank's wife, from the quantum realm. Hope is attacked by a quantumly unstable masked figure known as the Ghost, who escapes with Pym's lab and research in miniature size. The trio locates the Ghost, who captures them and reveals herself to be Ava Starr, the daughter of one of Pym's former partners, who died along with his wife during an experiment that caused Ava's unstable state. Ava wants to use Janet Van Dyne's quantum energy to cure herself, something that Hank refuses to help with given that it could kill Janet. The trio escape from captivity and open a stable quantum tunnel through which, after a few hiccups, Hank uses to enter the quantum realm while Lang and Hope battle some goons. Hank returns from the quantum realm with Janet, who gives some of her energy to Ava to stabilize her. Later, Lang, Pym, Hope, and Janet work together to help cure Ava for good. To do so, Lang enters the quantum realm to gather quantum particles, and while there, the other three disintegrate into thin air, trapping Lang in the quantum realm. Concurrently with all of this happening with Ant-Man and friends, we jump back into space where Thanos' Sanctuary 2 spaceship has intercepted the ship carrying Thor, Loki, Hulk, and the rest of the Asgardians. Thanos, having recently acquired the Power Stone from the planet Xandar, boards Thor's ship and strips the Space Stone from the Tesseract. Thanos overpowers the Hulk and Thor, kills Heimdall and Loki, and leaves, obliterating the Statesman on his way out and killing the rest of the Asgardians. Thanos plans to collect all of the Infinity Stones and use them to eliminate half of all life in the universe to solve overpopulation. He sends his children, known as the Black Order, to track down the Time Stone from Stephen Strange and the Mind Stone from Vision, but they fail. The Guardians of the Galaxy rescue Thor, and Groot and Rocket go to Nidavellir with him to have the Dwarf King Eitri create Stormbreaker, a battle axe. The other Guardians go to nowhere to prevent Thanos from getting the Reality Stone from the Collector, but they're too late. Thanos kidnaps Gamora and takes her to Vormir, where Red Skull requires the sacrifice of a loved one to receive the Soul Stone. So Thanos chucks Gamora over a cliff and gets the stone. Thanos and some of the Avengers end up on Thanos' homeworld of Titan, where a small fight ensues. There, Strange uses the Mind Stone to view a million possible futures and sees only one in which Thanos loses. Thanos then ends up getting the Time Stone from Strange in exchange for Tony Stark's life. The Infinity War culminates in Wakanda, where a large-scale battle takes place between Thanos and his army and the Wakandans, Guardians, and Avengers. Thanos almost loses, especially when Thor injures him, but then snaps his fingers, wiping out half the life in the universe, and Hank Pym, Janet Van Dyne, Hope Van Dyne, Bucky Barnes, T'Challa, Groot, Wanda Maximoff, Sam Wilson, Mantis, Drax, Peter Quill, Doctor Strange, Peter Parker, Maria Hill, and Nick Fury all disappear. Though, before Fury fades away, he's able to send out a distress signal from his pager, which shows the symbol of Captain Marvel. Thanos then settles down on a distant planet, having completed his mission. Finally, in the present day, Captain Marvel shows up and joins the remaining heroes. Among them, Bruce Banner, M'Baku, Okoye, James Rhodes, Rocket Raccoon, Steve Rogers, Natasha Romanoff, Thor, Tony Stark, Nebula, and Scott Lang, kind of. Okay, we did it. We're done. As always, if I made any mistakes or left anything out, please let me know in the comments. And if you appreciated the video and enjoyed it, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell. For now, my name is American Ben, and I'll catch you next time. Generation Films, peace.